Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF has wasted a post-apocalyptic pub crawler. That's a good question. It's a very good question, because it's a very odd name. You expected something to do with alcohol. Well, it kind of is. It is a first-person, post-apocalyptic, roguelite first-person shooter. I put too many first persons in there. Obviously, I've been drinking a little bit too much of this game's booze. Mr. Pedunkian is the fellow responsible for this. And this game is a bit of an odd one. Let me just put it that way. It's odd in many ways, both in terms of its story, the characters that you're dealing with, as well as the way that progression works. The graphic style is a bit weird too, as you can probably see. Now let's dive in and let me talk a little bit about the issues that I have with it. As this is one of these unique cases where I've sort of hit this wall where I am basically unable to progress to the point that I want to progress to, and honestly, I'm going to end up driving myself insane if I keep trying to do it. It's a game that's been taking up a lot of my time as of late. I've put about 10 hours into it so far. I did a stream on it, and it is extremely difficult. It's difficult to the point where I can't beat the first dungeon. The problem with not being able to beat the first dungeon is that after the first dungeon, I know that you get a permanent upgrade for your house. I'm currently standing in my house right now. So, to explain how it works, you are assigned a random character, which starts off with the same basic gear, which is a crappy pistol and really awful armor. And you go into what's called the cooler, which is a dungeon of sorts. It's kind of like a vault in Fallout. And you try to progress through this dungeon, through these floors, and they're procedurally generated, but they have a set of consistent characteristics. They'll drop the same kind of loot, they will give you the same sort of enemies as you go through, and every few floors you get the option to escape the dungeon via drinking booze, what's called a hangover. Now that hangover, in most situations, is a good thing. It's a buff that will actually continue into your next run as that character. So you can gradually build up power, and you can also do things like send back equipment and ammo using courier boxes, as well as stash it in your house to give yourself a better chance at the next run. What I'm doing here, by the way, is I am asking him... Oh, okay, that's pretty good. I'm asking him what he's got in terms of booze. I'm going to buff myself up. Just have it shaken, there we go. Yes, the currency is TP, toilet paper. I am not kidding. There we go. And that gained a few effects, so that's given me +5 to hit, so I'm going to be much, much better in melee, which is going to be helpful going forward. I'm going to grab my car and head on into the dungeon. But yeah, the whole point of it is to beat that dungeon. You're given a couple of quests once you unlock this little hub area. It's not an open world game. You might get the impression that it is. It's not a Borderlands or a Fallout. It is a roguelite dungeon crawler. It's just at the hub area you can buy things, and you can also buff yourself and also get some quests and things like that. So, this is the dungeon, this is the cooler. Now, here's the problem that I'm running into. The game is so astonishingly difficult that I've not been able to beat this cooler. The best that I've done is get to floor 9. I believe there's 10 floors in the first cooler, I think, as far as I can tell. Information is fairly limited, because a lot of people are running it to solve the same problem. And I've struggled and struggled to try and beat the first cooler, and I just can't do it. I'm repeatedly dying to all sorts of different things, and half of that is me being bad, and the other half of it is that the game can really spring some nasty surprises on you. There can be a really nasty spawn of enemies that are difficult to deal with. You can just get unlucky. You can open a door, and there's a shotgun trap right there that instantly kills you. You know, and it is possible to avoid it by standing slightly off to the side when you open it, but it can certainly be a problem. Not only that, but the game has what is called the SOB, which is a giant 600 HP hunter with a minigun that will come after you if you take too long on any one floor. This guy is gonna kill you. There's really no doubt about it, and you've got to get to the end of the level before he catches up to you. Let's see, I might grab this. I think this is a, yeah, it's a slightly better bit of armor there, and then we can toss that away. There we go. You might have noticed inventory management's kind of a big deal in this game. It absolutely is. Grab that, take those. And grab that too. So if this thing hunts you down, then you're dead. You know, you can evade it, but if it blocks you into a corner, then it's probably just going to fill you full of holes and you're going to lose. And when you lose, your character is dead. All the gear that is on your body, you will never get back. All the money that's on your body, you will never get back. Basically, the only things that you keep are the things that you can dump into these courier boxes. And these are randomly placed. I mean, the fact that I got one on floor 1 is highly unusual. You usually don't get that. I'm gonna toss my liquid bread in there because I can take it back to my home and craft it into something a little bit better. You know, and you can only carry usually 5 of those things in a stack anyway, so I'm gonna send that back. There we go. But yeah, if you get caught by this thing, you're pretty much dead. And you might think, well, you know, it's up to you to evade it. Or it's up to you to complete the level as quickly as possible. Yes, but there's an inherent contradiction in that this game is also very much about resource management. The amount of ammo that you can carry is quite limited. And when it comes to ammunition for rifles and shotguns, and certainly like tech weapons, you get them very, very slowly. And you can easily burn through that ammunition. So you end up in a situation where you are having to scavenge every little corridor, every little room, every filing cabinet, every locker for ammunition, and yet the game is telling you can't spend too long on any one level. This becomes particularly problematic when you end up having a level that spawns a large number of long corridors with rooms that are dead ends that require backtracking. Now, you don't know exactly where the exit of every level is. So you end up having to explore and trying to find the exit. If you take too long and the hunter spawns, and you end up thinking, alright, okay, I'm gonna go down, oh god! Ow. I'm gonna go down this corridor and I'm gonna go try and find the exit, and that turns out it was actually a long corridor with a dead end. It can end up in a situation where the hunter comes up behind you and you're literally stuck. Like, there's nothing you can do. You can't hide from it, you can't evade it, because it went down that corridor. That, to me, seems like a bit of a design flaw, because there are situations... Oh, God, that's a terrible debuff. There are definitely situations where you can get completely screwed, and you just can't escape the hunter, and your entire run is wasted. Now, the permadeath aspect of this game is hardly unusual. Quite a few roguelite and, of course... you know, real roguelite games have it. However, in this game, there's a palpable lack of progress that you make between deaths. What you can do is you can send items back, you can store the currency, assuming you get out of the cooler before you die. You can send a limited number of items back via the courier box. So you can sort of give yourself a little bit of equipment for the next run to make things a little bit easier. Although, you do end up in a situation where you think, alright, well, I'm just going to give myself some really powerful weapons for the next run. The problem is, you might not have the ammo to feed those weapons. Yeah, let's say you give yourself a rocket launcher. Well, the thing is, the first few floors don't drop rockets. So, there's really no use in having that, because you're going to burn through your ammo super fast, and then after you've done that, you really don't have any use for that particular item. Now, the best thing you can do is try to drop inventory increasing items, such as the different fanny packs. We used to call them bum bags. If there's actually a bum bag in this game as well, they increase the size of your inventory, which means you can carry more stuff around, more spare weapons, more spare ammo, all that sort of thing. Although ammo stacks are limited to, I believe, 100 or so. You know, you can't overstack beyond that because the game wants to limit how much ammo you can stockpile on purpose. You know, it's useful to be able to send those back, and it will help your next run, but that's not necessarily going to get you through. And it's only a matter of time before you do something stupid and end up losing everything. And then you think, well, you know, what progress did I really make? A lot of roguelites, they'll unlock things between levels, or something like, say, Rogue Legacy, for instance. It lets you build up your estate during levels, and every run you do is going to help you somewhat later on. This isn't really the case in Wasted. Every run you do is not necessarily going to help you later on. And that results in a lot of wasted... Yes, I am keenly aware of the pun. A lot of wasted time. There are runs that simply don't achieve anything for you. And obviously quite a lot of that comes down to your individual skill, but of course you can get screwed over simply by a bad run. You noticed earlier that I drank an unmarked flask. Now that could give me a buff, or it could give me a horrible debuff. Right now it's giving me a pretty horrible debuff. It's made my sneaking utterly useless. I can get rid of it by resting, you know, but that involves finding a bed, which usually means getting out of the cooler. And getting out of the cooler usually involves using, as I mentioned earlier, a bottle of booze, which gives you a hangover, and that hangover is usually a beneficial one. So really, you don't want to be in a situation where you rest, because you lose your hangover as well if you do that. So you're kind of resetting your progress outside of the gear that you acquired. It's an extremely frustrating game in that respect, because I feel like I've spent so much time and really achieved absolutely nothing. I know that once I beat this dungeon, I'm going to be able... Oh, come on! I'm going to be able to upgrade my house, and that's going to help me in future runs. But I've not been able to get that far. All right, we're being hunted now. I need to get the hell out of this place as fast as I possibly can. What state is precious? There we go. Right, let's get out of here as quickly as possible. It's a game that I find infuriating in many ways. I'm not saying the game is unfair, but even if you compare it to a very difficult game like Dark Souls does not send you right back to the start with all of your gear gone. Dark Souls respawns you back at the nearest bonfire, and you can attempt whatever you just did again. Of course, you can lose all your souls, that's the thing that can totally happen, but you don't lose your gear. More to the point, Dark Souls is consistent. Its level design is not randomly generated, so you can learn the game. You can learn from your mistakes. It's very difficult to actually learn from your mistakes in this title. Yeah, you can certainly... God, this sneaking is a terrible, terrible thing. What an awful debuff. You can totally learn and be more careful in places. You can learn the optimal tactics for taking enemies down, but the levels are still going to be randomly generated. So whatever you learn is like, oh god, there's a trap here, there's a trap here. That doesn't matter. The next time you go into this cooler, it's going to be completely different. So you end up having, I think, great difficulty learning from your mistakes and really progressing and getting better in a reliable way. That's the real issue that I've got with it. I think the best way to resolve that would probably be to make the initial dungeon shorter, and then give you some sort of permanent benefit after that's happened. So swap out to this weapon right here. I think if you did that, then you would probably... And there's one of those drinks, by the way. This would send me back, although it would give me a debuff, so I don't really want that. Anyway, I think if you made the initial dungeon a lot shorter, maybe 5 floors instead of 10, then people would have an easier time of it. The problem I have is that I just can't get past this. And I'm thinking to myself, what do you do in that situation as a critic? Like, you know, it's not something that a movie reviewer would ever have to deal with, not being able to get to the end of a movie. You just have to sit there and take it in. I mean, for a game that's so damn hard, do you abandon the critique at that point? Do you not do the video? I mean, at that point, you kind of screw over the developer, because you might be thinking that I hate this game. I actually don't. I think this game's got a pretty phenomenal sense of humor. The combat system for a roguelite is surprisingly good. The gunplay is pretty fun. A lot of good response from the enemies as they get shot. Perhaps overdoing the response in places when you get shot. There's a huge amount of knockback and screen distortion when you get hit in this game. You can mitigate it with certain pieces of armor, but it can get very, very difficult to deal with. Not only that, but I think the theme is really cool. The 80s idea that everyone is like completely stupid in this game. They're complete dumbasses. They're all wasters, you know, they're all drunk. Only the dumbest survived in this particular world. And it acts particularly amusing. I like the system of random buffs and debuffs. It is one of the most enjoyable aspects, I feel, of a lot of roguelites, because it does differentiate the runs. And I also like the sense of humor. I think it's a very funny game. Some of the quests that you get initially are hilarious, and some of the characters you meet are not only well written and surprisingly well voice acted, although it's a bit of a mixed bag, I'm certainly going to admit that. But they're really unusual, they're unique, they're not something that you'd find in other games. I also think that this game is very much a passion project. There's a lot of systems in this game that don't really need to be there, but they're very much interesting throwbacks to older titles. You know, for instance, the fact that it's got a very Fallout 1 and 2 damage system to enemies, even though it's a fully real-time title. You can do things like break their arm, cripple various parts of their body for debuffs. Like, for instance, there, cripple torso reduces enemy hit by 20%. That's really neat. It's cool that that he, anyway, integrated such in-depth systems into the game. Bear traps, I hate you so very much. Really intriguing. But simultaneously... Come on! Simultaneously, you have to wonder what the point of them all is, because most enemies die so fast that having the systems in place doesn't even seem to serve any practical purpose. Are you kidding? Ugh. It doesn't seem to serve any practical purpose. You know, most enemies get gunned down pretty fast. With some of the bigger enemies, you know, it's definitely something to consider. You know, shooting someone in the crotch increases your crit chance against them and all sorts of things like that. That's certainly pretty cool. Not to mention the fact that the enemies can actually fight each other. You know, if they end up shooting each other, they'll turn on each other and kill each other, which I think is really awesome. You can exploit the enemy's stupidity. You can make them run through acid and all sorts of things like that, because the whole point is these enemies are dumb. And you can exploit that fact. That's a... Oh, no! That's a really cool aspect of the game also. The game's got a lot to like in it. But it is, without a doubt, a very frustrating game. It's a very difficult game. It's a game that is going to put a lot of people off, I think, within the first few hours of playing it. And I'm sort of one of those people as well, because what I'm doing now is repeating the same content over and over. Now, you might think I'm contradicting myself, because I just said that the levels are randomly generated. Yes, but they're randomly generated based on pre-made rooms. So you see all the same rooms, just in a different order on a fairly consistent basis. Not only that, but you see the same items on a fairly consistent basis. You know, I know the doozy is going to drop in the first level. Or the first couple of levels, anyway. I know that I'm going to see a .9er pistol. I know I'm going to see, you know, a crowbar, probably on level 3 and 4, and these different items are all going to show up. You know, there are some drops which are certainly rarer than others, but you're not going to run into a situation where you get some amazing piece of armor within the first few levels. I'm going to grab this because I want to send it back for my next character run, because inevitably that is something that is going to happen. I'm just trying to think of something I can get rid of. You're very limited, as you can tell, in terms of your inventory in this game. So, I found myself repeating the same old thing, getting the same old weapons, fighting the same old enemies, and feeling like I'm just running in place. You know, it feels like I'm on a treadmill. It's really quite annoying, let me put it that way. And I'm actually losing enthusiasm for the game as a result. But, you know, half of me is blaming parts of the game, and the other half of me is blaming my lack of skill. Because it's obvious that some people are clearly good enough to get further in this game and enjoy all that the game has to offer. And yet, because I am not, I'm in this awful situation where I'm feeling like, should I even be critiquing it? You know, do I even have the right to if I can't get that far? It's a very difficult decision to make. And I think, you know, I've made the video because I believe that the game certainly deserves a look. It deserves the publicity because a lot of what it is very good. And I think there's definitely an audience for the game. You know, there's an audience for games that are super tough and, you know, incredibly frustrating at times. You know, people get a lot out of that a lot of the time. I do to some degree as well. I mean, I enjoy a challenge, but I am having a huge amount of difficulty really getting anywhere in this one. I mean, I'm in this situation right now, I think. I need to... Oh, bloody hell. Too many explosions. I need to get the hell out of here. Please go away. Not having a crosshair is... Oh, come on! So many bear traps. Oh, ugh. I need to get out of here, because if I don't, I'm going to meet the hunter, and then, you know, this entire run has been pretty much wasted. I managed to store something, but not much. I'm just going to ignore all of these guys. No, that's a dead end. God, screw it. I'm just going to ignore most of these guys and run at this point. Maybe grab some items and get the hell out of it. Nope, that's a dead end as well. And I think I'm dead now. Because I think the hunter is down this way, and I'm not sure if there's a way I can evade him. Yeah, there he is. Alright, I'm going to evade him till he reloads, and then I'm going to freaking run as fast as I can. Alright, run. No, I'm blocked by an enemy. I can't run. Jesus Christ, this is getting nuts. Alright, is he run out? Please tell me he's run out of ammo. Alright, thank God. Run, 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 run. Alright, he's actually fighting the other guys now, so I'm gonna try and find the exit to this room somewhere. There it is, thank God. Alright, route. Whew, tricky. As much as this game purports to be difficult, and it does, no doubt about that, I am not 100% sure that some of the systems couldn't use a little bit of a safety net. God, get out. Thank you. Dealt with. Wonderful. A little bit of a safety net. Just a bit. Doesn't have to make it crazy easy or anything like that. You don't have to nerf the difficulty into the ground, but there's some things that even Dark Souls does that this game refuses to do. And I hate the idea of wasting hours and hours and not really getting anywhere. And that's what I'm finding with this title. It's a little irritating, to say the least. There's a couple of other issues I've got with it. The inventory system being as limited as it is, I understand the purpose of that. Absolutely. You know, you've got it forces decision making on you. It means that you can't just grab everything and run around with it. I get that. I get why it's there. But it does also make the game, again, more difficult and also a little bit frustrating because you're stuck in menus a lot of the time, micromanaging your inventory. I might grab this, actually, hopefully find a courier box so I can send 2 of those back for my next character. There's just so much of that inventory micromanagement, and it is so fiddly. Some of it is automated. If you already have, say, an unfilled stack of ammo, it will automatically pick that stuff up. Or kind of a consumable, as you can quite clearly see here. It will pick that up for you. I'm gonna grab this. Didn't really mean to do that. I'm gonna grab that and reload. There we go. It'll pick that up for you. That's fine. So you don't have to worry too much about that. But because the stacks are so limited, that only helps so much. It's like, oh yeah, it's gonna automatically pick it up. But yeah, it will until you reach 100 ammo or whatever, and then it's not going to pick anything more up for you, or 5 of this healing item or whatever, and then it's not going to pick up any more of those either. Ooh, rifle. Okay. Yeah, might grab that. I have a decent amount of rifle ammunition, so that is a decent enough weapon. It does slow the pace of the game down. There's no doubt. I think it would be nice if ammo was an auto pickup on running over a corpse. The currency is the toilet paper, yes. Again, not kidding. That is the currency of this particular wasteland. Makes more sense than bottle caps. What use of bottle caps? Everyone that needs a good 2-ply every once in a while. What the hell's wrong with that? Oh, doing this without a bloody crosshair is a pain. No doubt about that. Actually, out of pistol ammo completely now. Good lord. What can I drop? Ah, screw it. Just drop one of those. We need to start a new stack of that. It automatically picks that up. Which makes me wonder, you know, why would it not automatically pick up ammunition? You know, it's one of the most important parts of the game. You would think that that would be a nice little addition. I'll also say that while it's got a pretty cool soundtrack, because you get stuck in the first 3 or 4 floors so often, it does get a little repetitive, which is a little bit unfortunate. It would be nice if they varied up the sound that you were given on each level. That would be great. You know, maybe just have a couple of different tracks for the first few floors so you weren't listening to the same music over and over and over again. You know, I don't want to feel sick of this particular soundtrack because I like it. You know, it's got a little bit of a Deus Ex vibe to it. Actually, a lot of the game has a bit of a Deus Ex vibe to it, weirdly enough. Especially like the aiming system and how stats related it is. Oh god, being hunted again. Oh, and there's a big scary dude in there. Trying to hit that explosive barrel behind him to try and kill him, but you know what? Screw it. We're not fighting that guy. He's crazy. Get the hell out of here. Discretion is the better part of valor at this point. Let's just get as far away as possible. There we go. Oh, a bunch of explosive barrels. There better not be a trap around it that sets that off. Disarm it. There we go. Still being hunted. For the love of God, I hope I can find my way out of here. Kill that. I think there's a flask in here. Please be a good buff. I think a lot of the enjoyment of this game is going to come down to your tolerance for repeating particular pieces of content. Not to mention your tolerance for frustration. You know, how easily do you lose your cool? In my case, pretty damn easily. Can you stay calm? Because the more angry you get at this game, the more mistakes you're gonna make. You're gonna run into more traps, you're gonna be less careful, you're gonna screw up. Can certainly be a problem, and it's going to impede your progress even more. So, would I recommend it? Well, I think, again, it comes down to that level of tolerance. Can you see yourself playing the same content over and over and over again, with the same weapons, against the same enemies, in an attempt to get to the other stuff? Are you willing to tolerate no meaningful progress made whatsoever in certain runs? Are you willing to tolerate that while there is an element of persistence, you have to travel through a fairly large amount of content in order to reach it? It's a wall. It's a wall that you have to climb over. It's, you know, a serious impediment, I think, to new players. And it's clearly designed that way. Are you the sort of person that can tolerate that and can deal with it? I don't know if I am, because I have a very, very limited time, so the amount of patience that I've got for content repetition like this is pretty low. Honestly. Go away. Thank you. If that's not the case for you, then this game's actually pretty damn good value. You know, you're looking at a game that's $10, that has a good amount of dungeon crawling on it, in a pretty enjoyable combat system, all things considered. It also has a daily courier run, which is a randomly generated run with a different character, which allows you to pick up some pretty cool loot and acquire that loot on your main character. Which I thought was a really cool idea. You get to do it every day, and that system allows you to compete on leaderboards as well as gaining a benefit for yourself. So there is a reason to kind of come back on a daily basis to it, which I think is really kind of awesome. There seems to be a lot of content here. It's just such a shame that I'm finding it so damn difficult to reach that content. Alright, we can store that for our next run. There we go. Yeah, that should do the trick. Maybe there is some secret to it that I just haven't really come across yet. Maybe there will be a revelatory moment where I discover how to get good. Entirely possible. I'm not at all suggesting that the whole game is broken by any means. It's not. There are some systems that I personally would change. I really would. Is there a reason to push you this fast through the levels? You know, doesn't that hurt a more sneaky playstyle, which the game clearly supports and yet then tells you not to do because of the speed that you have to go through these levels at in order to not get horribly murdered by the SOB hunter? Isn't that something of a contradiction? Why have such complex damage systems which encourage you to carefully aim and take out different body parts when in reality you've got to run through the levels as fast as possible? You know, why have the game be as inventory management and loot dependent as it is and encourage you to scavenge in every room for resources when in reality, if you do too much of that, you're going to end up getting murdered, and it could very well come down to the random chance of how the level was generated. Those are issues that I think need to be sorted out over time. The developer has heard those criticisms. I'm certainly not the only person making them. It's a very common theme on the board from some people on the Steam forums that are saying that this is an issue and it's impeding their enjoyment of the game. Even this sort of hangover system right here, where you're supposed to take a good hangover, go back and run again through the content, since you are now significantly more powerful. Is that something that is really a good idea when you are forced to go through the same content again? Now, do I have to keep doing this? Do I have to keep repeating this for hours and hours until I beat this dungeon? Well, the answer appears to be yes. So it's a very difficult kind of judgment for me, because I know I'm not very good at it. And you've got to be very, very careful to distinguish between problems that are caused by a personal lack of skill on your part and problems that are caused through the design of the game. I think it's definitely a mix of both. I don't think there's really any doubt about that. But if you have that level of tolerance, Wasted is creative, Wasted is content-rich for the price, Wasted has enjoyable humor, it has fun gunplay. It's got even some interesting lore in it, and I love those daily courier runs. I think that's a really cool idea. But it may not be for someone that has limited time on their hands. It may not be for someone that has limited tolerance for losing his progress. Because this is a game that definitely allows you to do that. Maybe more than any modern roguelite I've personally ever seen. Whether or not you think that's a good thing is going to be a very subjective prospect for everybody. So, take a look at it, listen to what I had to say, think about it. Because it certainly is not a bad game, by any stretch of the imagination. It's really quite good in many ways, and it's honestly, I think, one of the best roguelites that I've played, especially in first person, when it comes to its combat system. There are so many roguelites that eschew... Is it a shoe? I think it's a shoe. Yes, they eschew a good combat system for a bunch of randomness and buff crazy nonsense and things like that. And this game really doesn't. You know, it actually has a pretty well-developed combat system. Maybe even an overdeveloped combat system in many ways. But I think it is lacking in other areas. So, have a think about it. Don't dismiss the game, certainly. Don't dismiss the game on my part. You're probably a lot better than I am. Perhaps I do need to just get good. There's no harm in that, by any stretch of the imagination. We shouldn't be telling people not to. In fact, you know, we should be celebrating when people get good at things. Isn't that a good thing? Of course it is. It's great. But I suck. I suck so very badly. And I wish I didn't. Wasted, a post-apocalyptic pub crawler, available on Steam for $10 or your regional equivalent. My name has been TotalBiscuit. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then by all means, do feel free to click the like button. If not, the dislike... It's a bear trap. The dislike bear trap is right here. No, no, go away. God, just... I'll see you next time. Bloody hell.